Joining us for a look ahead at the UN's climate conference in Copenhagen later this year is Michael Allegretti. He's a senior advisor to the Climate Group, an organization of businesses and governments trying to promote an international agreement on curbing greenhouse gases. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Developing nations like China and India have long argued that trying to limit greenhouse gases is going to hurt their economies, and some have even come to sort of resent this pressure being put on them. How are we going to navigate this critical issue at Copenhagen?
Well, ultimately, what's going to take place in Copenhagen will be a deal, and a deal is a negotiation between a few sides. So everyone's going to have to give a little, but they all have to see themselves as winners in the end and able to get a piece of the pie and the economic opportunity associated with this. So at the Climate Group, our work is focused on demonstrating what are the economic opportunities in the US, in Europe, in China, in India, and ultimately that's how we'll navigate it, is to continue to put out the positive aspects of what taking action on this global environmental issue will mean.
So if these limits are accepted, whatever they turn out to be, by China, by India and by other developing nations, what kind of concessions would the West have to make here in the United States and in Europe as well?
Well, it's not so much as having to make concessions as having to figure out new ways to move the economies forward in each of these countries. The U.S. has tremendous opportunities in its Midwest manufacturing sector and in its finance sector, and China does as well in its new economies that it's developing. So as to what the concessions are, it's unclear right now. Only the negotiators really know that.
And how might the new administration in Washington, President Obama talked a lot about the greening of industry, about climate change and the environment in general. Will that make a difference to what kind of deal is reached in Copenhagen?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the president, his administration, and Republicans and Democrats in various parts of the parties are trying to advance a new greener agenda for business. But what's needed right now is political will and momentum. The idea is to create momentum for the UN process, for business to take action, and for national governments to start to cut emissions in a way that makes sense for the economy.
So by political will, do you mean that certain nations or their leaders are laggards in this, and that they don't want to come along and they don't want to have any kind of limits imposed on their ability to do whatever they want with the environment? Or what
I think
precisely?
ultimately all countries in the world want to address climate change in a smart way. They need to see a path forward that makes sense for their economies. And so that's incumbent on us in the NGO community and those who are concerned about this issue to make that case for them.
And very briefly, do you think that we're going to get a truly workable deal in Copenhagen?
I'm not sure the answer to that, and most folks aren't, but what is evident is that negotiators who have been at this for decades need an injection of will from the top, from their prime ministers and their presidents, and that's what we're committed to help doing.
Okay, Michael Allegretti, thank you very much.
Thank you.